Revision is one of the most important parts of the writing process. Unfortunately, it's also the part that we spend the least amount of time on, and there are some good reasons for that. Revision is difficult. It's really difficult to see the mistakes in your own writing, the weaknesses in your own writing. It's also just psychologically hard to go back to something you've already kind of finished and have to work on it more. But I think the main reason that revision is difficult for students is that they don't have a clear idea of what to do, how to proceed with revision. There are so many different things that you could focus on, and sometimes when you look at the comments I write on your papers, those comments seem to focus on so many different areas, it's hard to know where to start. So this presentation is designed to give you a path, tell you where to start, and how to proceed in a systematic way. I think when you're revising, especially academic writing, you should focus on 4 key areas. Those areas are clarity, tone, organization, and correctness. Now the important thing about this list is that it's a weighted list or a ranked list. In other words, the items at the top of the list are more important. You should spend more time on them than the items near the bottom of the list. Clarity is more important than tone, tone's more important than organization, and organization is more important than correctness. Now the surprising thing about that is that most students, I think when they think about revision, think about editing things like grammar mistakes or punctuation errors or spelling errors. But I think those are the least important things to focus on. Much more important, if you're trying to really improve your writing, is to focus on the big stuff. The more global comments, the comments that don't focus on an individual word, but rather how your paper overall expresses itself. The most important thing, I think, is clarity. And the reason is pretty simple. If the audience can't figure out what it is you're trying to say, it really doesn't matter how well you've said it or how important your information is. It's vital, since you're communicating to an audience, that you always focus on making your writing as clear as possible. For example, I often see sentences that look kind of like this one. Judas brings out how, between culture war and capitalism, they in common pursue success, both personal and in happiness on earth. Now, I think we can all agree that that sentence is not as clear as it could be. There are several things that keep it from being clear. Phrases like Judas brings out how, instead of a more direct phrase like Judas says or Judas argues. The phrasing of they in common pursue success, both personal and in happiness on earth. Who talks like that? They in common pursue success. It's almost backwards from the way we would normally talk. This kind of sentence, it's not that it's grammatically wrong, it's that it just doesn't express the ideas in the sentence in a very clear way. Much better would be to say something like this. Judas argues that both sides of the culture war share a goal of personal success and happiness on earth. You can see, first of all, the sentence is quite a bit shorter than the original. And usually, if you can take a sentence and cut out a third of the words and the idea is still there, you should do so, because those extra words will get in the way. I think you can see also how the phrase Judas argues is clearer and much more direct than Judas brings out how. This is a phrase that actually means something. This example is very similar. We don't have the intention to the meaning, but in fact you are using a verbal racism. Again, though the sentence overall is unclear, we can see some individual points that are contributing to that lack of clarity. First of all, there's the pronoun confusion. We start with we and then shift to you halfway through the sentence. That's one good reason to write in third-person pronouns, as your high school English teachers probably told you. Phrases like the intention to the meaning, which I guess I kind of understand what's being said there, but it's certainly not being said very clearly. And finally, a verbal racism. That's a very awkward way to say what I think most of us would call a racist remark or a racist comment. Again, the sentence just doesn't express the ideas in a very clear or straightforward way. Much better would be something like, people are often unaware of the potentially offensive nature of the words they use. Now again, the sentence is shorter, although I will admit in this case some of the individual words are longer, words like potentially and offensive. But I don't think there's any word here that you're unfamiliar with. It's not that we've made the words into big words or complicated words. We've just been more precise in what we're trying to say. Notice again that we've taken out the first and second person pronouns. We're not talking about we or you. Instead, we're talking about people. And that's much clearer because that's a general statement that's not referring either directly to the author or to the audience. Here's a final example. It does not matter of what race you are, but what opportunities that you are presented with. This sentence is actually like quite a few unclear or awkward sentences that I see where I can figure out fairly easily what the idea is, but really the reader shouldn't have to work at all to figure out those ideas. Certainly this is not phrased as clearly or in a straightforward way as it should be. Of what race you are is a strange way to put it. We have a weird grammatical problem where the first half, it does not matter of what race you are. The second half is not an independent clause as the first half is. So overall, the sentence is just not phrased very clearly. It would be better to say something like, the race of a person is less important than the kind of opportunities presented to that person. We can see again that the second person pronouns have been removed. We're not talking about what race you are, but rather the race of a person. And in general, the sentence is simply more direct, more clear, and more straightforward. In general, when you look at your writing, go back and look at any time I've marked in your papers things like, I have difficulty following here, or I don't know what you mean, or awkward phrasing. Those are the kinds of sentences that I'm referring to here. Clarity, and again, this is not about grammar or punctuation or anything like that, but rather the ability to express yourself clearly and directly to an audience is of the utmost importance when you write. And when you go back to revise your paper for your revision assignment, or when you're looking at the paragraph for your final exam, the first question you should ask yourself is whether there are any examples of sentences like these where the idea is getting lost or tangled up in phrasing that is not direct, not clear, not simple, and not straightforward.